Acting President Yemi Oshibajo meets members of Presidential Task Force on rice and wheat. Assures of government continued support towards self-sufficiency in food and cash crops.
National Assembly set to resume plenary after 3-week recess. Issues of urgent national importance to engage attention of lawmakers.
The Nigerian Air Force intensifies operations in the northeast to frustrate attempts by fleeing insurgents to relocate and regroup.
Good Morning Nigeria today interrogates Nigeria's $6 billion wheat import and why self-sufficiency in the commodity has remained a mirage.
All right, now listen to these statistics, and that's according to the figures we got from the United States Department of Agriculture. Nigeria is set to have spent over 660 million United States dollars on what? Wheat importation, and that's between January and September last year.
And that's right, Claire. Annually, Nigeria's wheat imports amount to about 4.2 million metric tons at a total cost of over $6 billion US dollars. And this figure is expected to climb to not less than $10 billion US dollars by year 2030. That's just about 13 years away.
Indeed, dear Kingsley. Now, the total national wheat production output, it's about 600,000 metric tons a year. Now, that's just about 3% of our national demand, and it is spread across 215,000 hectares of wheat growing land in 10 mainly northern states, and those include Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, Kano, Sokoto, Jigawa, Bauchi, Kebbi, Zamfara, and also Katsina.
Well, research indicates that locally produced wheat tends to have higher protein content, lower moisture, and also lower gluten when compared to the imported varieties from countries such as China, India, Russia, the US, Canada, Ukraine, Australia, Pakistan, Turkey, and Iran. And the quality of the locally produced wheat has made it less attractive to millers.
All right. Now, of course, the federal government has made efforts to increase the country's wheat production by encouraging research into high-yielding varieties, which indeed have early, maturity, high yield, and baking quality. Now, according to the Executive Director, Lake Chad Research Institute, Dr. Oluwashino Olabanji, appreciable progress has been recorded in wheat research, and that's, of course, with the release of six rain-fed wheat varieties that have the potential yield of up to about between 5 and 6 tons per hectare, and that's in the Northeast Agro-Ecological Zone.
Well, in addition to what Claire has just indicated, the federal government has set up a National Rice and Wheat Task Force to, among other things, step up production targets for rice and wheat in the states that are participating in the program, and as well as determine the scope and particulars for government support needed towards the attainment of the set targets. Indeed, that's one of our news items this morning about the Vice President, that's to say the Acting President, meeting with members of the Presidential Task Force on rice and wheat production.
Indeed. Kingsley, just before I continue with, of course, what the task force is mandated to do, when we talk about wheat, we're talking about there's so much demand for wheat-based foods now. We're talking about, well, I cherish, I savor my semovita, I savor my semolina. These are some of the, products, of course, that are made out of wheat. Of course, biscuits.
That's right. Confectioners indeed need them. I mean, the bakers and so on and so forth. You can't, without which you won't have bread.
Exactly, exactly. Mainly. Of course, mainly. Now, the task force is also, that's the task force that Kingsley Eleron talked about, is also expected to consider and prefer the best off-take and marketing arrangements that will encourage maximum effort among the farmers and, of course, millers, as well as to determine the rice and wheat value chain deficiencies. They're also to recommend solutions for addressing all these challenges.
But there are questions to pose. Now, what are the factors inhibiting local production of wheat in Nigeria? Now, is the projected self-sufficiency in wheat production by year 2020, that's 3 years away, realistic? And what impact have the initiatives by both the federal and state governments made on wheat production as well as value chain? These and some other questions we shall attempt to provide answers to in the course of the program this morning. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. You know what we do. We're always happy that you'll find time to join us every morning on Good Morning Nigeria. Of course, I was going to say 7 days a week. Of course, Monday to Fridays, and it's happening live right here on Africa's largest TV network. That's the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. Welcome.
All right. Now, in the course of the program, of course, we have our regular companion segments. These include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. In the meantime, we're going over to the newsroom now. And our caster this morning is Anne Jibuno. Hi, Anne.
Good morning, Kingsley and Claire. Good morning. Welcome to the news. The federal government says it will continue to support the drive towards self-sufficiency in food security. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo gave the assurance at a meeting with members of the Presidential Task Force on rice and wheat.
Our farmers have responded, and all parts of Nigeria, about 32 states, have stepped up increased production. There has been a remarkable increase in the number of states that have produced wheat from the last season. Last season, we only had about 5 states. Now, about 11, we are hearing reports from 11 states.
All is now set for the Senate to resume plenary after 3 weeks recess. Priority reports and 5 motions have been slated for consideration on resumption today.
With the established decision of the leadership of the Senate, on Tuesdays we are supposed to take motions from distinguished senators. Then on Wednesdays we are supposed to entertain second reading of bills. Then on Thursdays, we are supposed to take consideration of reports.
Similarly, top on the agenda of the House of Representatives on resumption of plenary include the consideration of 2 bills, provision for the elderly, and introduction of vocational studies in secondary school syllabus. Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, Emmanuel Orke-Jev, gave this indication while briefing our National Assembly correspondent.
He has brought a bill that we should not just leave the elderly with their families, who sometimes are not just available. There's also a bill that seeks to include in the syllabus, of the secondary school for teaching of vocational studies.
The quick passage of the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill of 2016 is key towards addressing the various challenges facing the country's petroleum sector. This was the unanimous view at a retreat by the Senate Joint Committee on Petroleum Upstream, Downstream and Gas in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State.
This bill is trying to control, creating a commercial entity that is profit-oriented. There is no other thing that company is expected to do to work efficiently and bring money to the coffers of the country.
The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, has warned contractors handling road projects across the country not to compromise on quality. The minister was speaking when he inspected the ongoing construction work at the Benin-Eho Road dualization project in Benin City.
I have asked them that let's get money and mobilize that data straight back to full reconstruction instead of patching, which we were away. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
And the Surveyor General of the Federation, Ebisente Awudu, has enjoined 54 registered countries of the African Students' Union Parliament, especially those studying surveying, to contribute in resolving crises arising from international and local boundary disputes. He gave the advice while playing host to the African Students' Union Parliament in Abuja.
Passed a resolution that 2.5% of national budget should be earmarked for surveying and mapping activities. What we need to do is the governments of African continent to spend more on surveying and mapping.
There have been allegations of imported gari from India selling in Nigerian supermarkets. The information, which has been trending on social media, is one that a lot of Nigerians have been asking questions about. To clear the air, health correspondent Rabi Abdallah interviewed via telephone the acting director general of NAFDAC, Yetunde Oni, who is currently in Ilorin, the Kwara state capital.
A whistleblower informed us about this product, and we immediately swung into action today by visiting the supermarket on Cameron Road, Ikoyi. My officers went there and were able to see 26 packets of 500 grams each, the product. The product is said to be a product from Ghana, but packaged in UK. No NAFDAC number. We would also need to take the products to the lab and ascertain the quality status. Investigation continues.
Well, the Nigerian Air Force is intensifying operations in the northeast to ensure that fleeing insurgents do not find a location to regroup. This came to the fore during an operational tour mandated by the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, to formations in the zone.
So that we can adequately support the multinational joint task force, which is also covering the northern fringes, as you know, northern fringes of the Borno state. So they are embarking on special operations very soon. So in preparation for that, we want to make sure that the Mongono FOB is properly prepared to support our helicopter operations.
The Federal Ministry of Information and Culture has signed a memorandum of understanding with a group known as Leadership Folio to produce a book that will tell and showcase Nigeria's history from 1946 to 2014.
Going through the pictures, every page of this grand book is a delight. Every page of it, and the history, what it stands for. As a matter of fact, you will not be able to recognize that some of these places are even in Nigeria. And this is why I believe there can be no better gift from Nigeria to the outside world or to ourselves than this grand book.
Well, that's the news for now. Claire and Kingsley will be back after this break. Thanks for watching.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Why are you filming, Mommy?
To help people stop getting sick.
People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Dettol, endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, a subsidiary of the Nigerian Television Authority, specializes in creating comfort in all areas of life, such as real estate investments, that is, land, houses, and office spaces, mass leasing, savings and loan scheme, household items and car loans, and so much more. Other information and entertainment services include Property in Style, a TV program that airs on the network service of the NTA, and also Property Connect, a nationwide magazine. Our priority is to bridge poverty gaps and sustain quality welfare of our clients. Partner with us and watch us help you grow. Pay us a visit today at the NTA headquarters permanent site, Area 11 Garki, Abuja, or our Lagos office at number 15 Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, Lagos. For more information, visit our website on www.ntaproperties.com.ng, or you can email us on ntap2000@yahoo.com. Call us on 080-2316-3474 or 080-6939-5185 or 070-3189-0555. NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, the much needed help at your doorstep.
All right, welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live here on the NTA. And it's time to talk business now, and on the business news, government is interfacing with the private sector on harnessing the potentials of share nuts. And the stock exchange again resumes the week upbeat. Details with Leah Katumba Batunde.
Nigeria is among the over 25 countries expected to converge on Cotonou, capital of Benin Republic, on March 13, 2017 to experience share as a seed of change at the 10th Annual International Share Conference. Officials of the National Share Products Association of Nigeria, NASPAN, who briefed the Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, Aisha Abubakar, in Abuja, conversed for a deliberate national policy that will fast-track the development of the product in Nigeria.
We don't have industries to produce, to crush them in large quantity. So we are just using small-scale processing, which will never take us anywhere.
Used largely in food and cosmetic industry in Asia, Europe, and the United States of America, share also referred to as the wild gold, the minister said it is among government's top non-oil products with the capacity to generate over $2 billion in foreign earnings annually.
We still don't have a bill that has stopped the cutting down of share trees, and nobody is planting share trees as a policy. Nobody is doing it till today. And you cannot be serious, and nobody will ever take you seriously when you're killing the ones that you have.
Reports say the federal government loses not less than 335 billion naira revenue in excise duties annually to illegal exportation of share. Investors on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange heaved a sigh of relief Monday as the market resumed trading in the green to see the oil share index advance by 0.34%. Next is a graphic summary of closing figures from the NSE. The International Energy Forum, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and the International Energy Agency have met in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to debate short, medium, and long-term energy outlook and transport sector dynamics ahead of the fiscal and financial energy market interaction scheduled for March 16, 2017 in Vienna, Austria. The organization agreed to maintain their efforts to enhance the comparability of energy outlooks in response to more aligned baseline data in supply and demand where possible. The 7th symposium is part of the wider trilateral work program undertaken by the IEA and OPEC and IEF in recognition of the mandates of energy ministers of IEF and G20 countries. Now, finally, the Vatican says it froze more than 2 million euros in cases of suspected money laundering in 2016. The Chief Magistrate of the Vatican, Gian Pietro Milano, whose official title is Promoter of Justice, disclosed that the money was frozen following alerts from the Vatican authority. About 13 million euros of the suspected money has been frozen by the Vatican between 2013 and 2016, according to Reuters. And that is it for this hour. The bulletin will continue shortly.
All right, thank you very much, dear Leah Katun Babatunde, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Claire, we couldn't have a chit-chat on the gari that is said to have been imported from India and found in some supermarkets in Lagos and perhaps elsewhere in the country.
Indeed, I don't know what to say. It's scandalous, to say the least.
Well, I think the clarification about that it is actually imported from Ghana, and NAFDAC has swooped on it. They are testing it for its safety for consumption.
Well, we have more, Nigeria has more arable land than Ghana, and cassava is grown widely throughout the country.
Yes. Don't forget to belong to ECOWAS, and there are
we have to produce what we eat and then eat what we produce.
Yes.
A few months ago, it was said that yams were being, yam tubers or yam seedlings were being exported to China. We hope that in a few years' time, we will not be buying yams from China.
Pounded yam from China. It's not important.
All right.
Jaya, let me formally welcome you. We've already moved ahead, so we will not play the stings if my producer would allow that. You're welcome, Bayo.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin our review straight away by going to the Nigerian Pilot newspaper. Pilot newspaper, below the nameplate, Southern Kaduna Crisis. That's the kicker for that. It says, policeman, 8 others killed in fresh attacks. Details of that story can be found on page 7. That's Nigerian Pilot. Southern Kaduna Crisis, policeman, 8 others killed in fresh attacks. Details on page 7. Now, 1 billion naira tax default. Enugu government sues Stanbic, Unity, Sky, and 5 other banks. Details of the story can be found on page 6. And also, the lead story for the Nigerian Pilot, of course, has to do with the Forex crisis. Fees and medicals, that's the kicker. CBN pegs Forex interbank rate at 20%. CBN pegs Forex interbank rate at 20%. And it has a rider, directs banks to open FX sales points at major airports. Directs banks to open FX sales points at major airports. Now, you also have there on the front page a photograph of protesters who were complaining about the incessant kidnapping in the Ekpe axis of Lagos. The community members are saying, put an end to kidnapping. It's an imminent threat to food security. Now, secondly, story on the front page of the Nigerian Pilot says $850 billion crude oil export proceeds withheld by JVCs. JVCs, that stands for joint venture companies, and that's according to the Senate. And that Nigeria loses 23.6 billion naira over non-monitoring of export. Now, let's go to the footer of the front page of the Nigerian Pilot, and we'll take a window of other headlines. Xenophobic attacks. Further attacks to attract serious consequences. Federal government warns South Africa. Xenophobic attacks, I take that again. Further attacks to attract serious consequences. Federal government warns South Africa. Details of that story on page 4. PDP crisis. Sheriff IBB Aliu meet in Mina. And NBA to nominate lawyers as Court of Appeal justices. That's on page 7. Corruption. Senate charges EFCC to go after CBN, ministers, and others. And Supreme Court affirms Lagos government's acquisition of Ilasamaja and Oshodi land. Details on page 4.
That's a very busy front page, the Pilot, this morning. All right, let me take the authority now. And indeed, the authority is kicking off with the lead story that's common in all the papers that we have, and it has to do with the PDP crisis. But it has its own caption this way: Jonathan accepts Sheriff, Wike, Faoshe, kick. Jonathan accepts Sheriff, Wike, Faoshe, kick. Now, 2 writers follow that story. We're going to the Supreme Court, says McAfee, and police aboard party leaders meeting at ICC. That's of course, International Conference Center. And The story trending below the picture story there. Oshibajo, 21 governors boycott APC meeting. And the details of this story you can find on page 2. Just a bit above the nameplate. I'm impressed with Governor Gwanye's performance. This is coming from Balayaba Musa. Nigeria has no record of oil export under Buhari. And this is coming from the ministry. It's on page 4. Now, CBN soft pedals on Forex allocation for school fees. And of course, there are other areas there, not just the school fees, of course, medical issues as well. Okay, Bayo, I think time now to, get back to you. But specifically of interest, should be the issue in South Africa.
Yes,
on the foreign
if I was going to leave aside the political disagreements and go straight to the issue of killings, Kaduna State government has confirmed that 21 persons have been killed in renewed attacks in villages in Kaura and Jema local government. The 4 villages that were attacked were Ashim, Nisi, Zelan, and Bakin Kogi. In fact, you recall that Kinsley just read there that a policeman was killed in that melee there. Meanwhile, soldiers of Operation Harmony and Operation Yaki have already been there and they have taken control. The government in Kaduna says the situation has been brought under control, but it still continues with its measure to bring those involved to book. And far across in South Africa, the business and homes of some Nigerians in South Africa, especially a place called Pretoria West, have come under xenophobic attack. Honorable Rita Orji of the House Committee on Diaspora has lamented that government should pay attention to the welfare of Nigerians abroad. The interest should not be only in the foreign currency they remit home to Nigerians. He says her committee is tired, having made a report about killings in South Africa, in Libya, at the doorstep of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and apparently no visible action. However, the special advisor to the president on the Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, Honorable Abike Dabrielewa, says that there is already alarm that there's going to be another round of attack on Nigerians on Wednesday and Thursday. And the presidency has warned that there will be serious consequences if those attacks are carried out. She lamented that we lost 116 Nigerians in 2 years. And in 2016 alone, about 20 Nigerians were killed. He says this cannot continue. Meanwhile, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyama, in an interview with Daily Trust, had given indication about measures that are usually taken in such situations. He says Nigerian representative and permanent mission are gotten in touch with, and they in turn get in touch with the authorities concerned. First, they ensure proper investigation. Secondly, they ensure justice is done and measures taken by that country to stop the occurrence. He says at other levels, he as minister talks to his counterparts in that country, and at the highest level, the president sometimes reach out to the presidents of those countries, and that is how such international clashes are tackled.
All right. Well, Bayo, thanks a lot. So the fact is that xenophobic attacks on Nigerians by South Africans, those attacks have become one too many. Yes. It's almost a recurrent decimal in the relationship between Nigerians who are having businesses there and some of the South Africans. Let's see what happens, as the government has indicated that it could be tit for tat. Blueprint is next for us, very quickly. Crack in APC as governors, National Assembly members, others shun budget meeting. Lead story says no political solution to our crisis. That's according to McCarthy. With 3 riders, faction takes case to Supreme Court. And Sharif has no hidden agenda. That's according to Zodima. And Jonathan opts to mediate while we blocked access to ICC, that's the International Conference Center. And that's according to the police. Details of all of these stories can be found on page 6. Now, Nigeria to evacuate 230 nationals from Libya and the EU. Unpaid pension and gratuities. Quara retirees begin 7-day fasting. Details on page 14. And Ekweremadu, that's Deputy Senate President, accuses federal government of destroying democracy and looting. Senate orders EFCC to monitor CBN and MDAs. Oshibajo meets governors and ministers on rice and wheat sufficiency. Details of that story inside at page 8.
Okay, let me quickly take the New Telegraph now, and it leads with the story. CBN bows to pressure. Number of riders to that story. Boost Forex sales for school fees payment, PTA and medicals. Banks to float Forex offices at major airports. Rwani, its path to currency convergence. Naira now works currency in Africa. And that's coming from Ekweremadu. That's the Deputy Senate President. And you can find, again, the picture stories here making the rounds across section of farmers and community members protesting at the governor's office. That's Lagos State yesterday, Alausa. That's over the kidnapped, of course, of probably someone there. You find all the placards telling the story. Again, gunmen killed 22, raised houses in southern Kaduna. Army General CP relocate to troubled areas. And hope rises for treatment of diabetic kidney. And that story is on page 6. Quite a number of stories on the front page. But let me quickly take this one that's trending just above the nameplate. Nigeria loses $23.6 billion over non-monitoring of crude export. Now, Senate alleges $850 billion export proceeds, repatriation held by JVCs. We have a number of newspapers that we cannot tell. We have Leadership, and of course we have The Sun, we have The Punch. But quickly, let's do a review of this one.
Yes, quickly. Well, the central bank has provided additional funds to banks to meet the needs for Forex and business, personal travel, school fees, and medical needs. It has also indicated that transactions henceforth are to be at a rate not exceeding 20% above the interbank rate. It has also put a stop to the priority hitherto given to manufacturing, which was 60% of Forex was to go to them. It has put a stop to that. Meanwhile, it has indicated that foreign exchange retail will now be at airports. The bank has also cut down the tender for forward sales for 180 days to 60 days. The central bank says it has cleared all backlog of Forex demands for letters of credit, and bank will be giving foreign exchange commensurate with their daily demands. These are initiatives that the central bank has put to improve the foreign exchange
all right, so let's see how the new policies kick in and what the impact will be in the coming weeks as well as the coming months. Baya Toebi, that's the much we can take in our newspaper review segment today. Thank you for being with us. See you tomorrow midweek.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a short break. When we return, of course, we'll be dealing with the issue of wheat and why it's been such a major challenge for Nigeria having self-sufficiency in wheat and what efforts have been done to overcome that.
Call of change, stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, Ogerola. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10. Thank you. This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now?
Sure.
This gets just 1.
It is clean.
But not perfect 10.
Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible.
Challenge? Try Apex compared to bleach and detergent. Apex sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow.
Now you also take that?
Perfect 10x challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack for 200 naira only.
There are over 250,000 street children in Lagos.
The Street Childcare and Welfare Initiative is a sanctuary for street children and runaways. Rotimi Aziz was one such child. 3 years ago, his life was the streets.
It's hard to sleep on the floor because sometimes rain fall and beat us on the floor while we are sleeping outside. So we experience a whole lot of bad things on the street.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Time for us again to commence our conversation. You know what we do here. And now, of course, while consumption of wheat-based products has continued to rise in Nigeria, our capacity, of course, is far from meeting our demands, and this, is giving rise to, of course, more imports of wheat. From US alone, we told you earlier on that our import is about over $600 million. Now, as we interrogate the $6 billion wheat import bill, Oyemi Ajayi, of course, takes us down memory lane, of course, to see how wheat production started in Nigeria.
At the mention of the commodity wheat, the first thing that comes to mind is bread, knowing fully well that bakery and some confectionaries make good use of higher quantity of wheat in their daily production. Wheat cultivation in Nigeria dates back to the 16th century when it was grown in small plots. Between 1971 and 1981, agricultural import bill, including that of wheat, rose from $192 million to $450 million. In 1987, wheat importation reduced after the introduction of accelerated wheat production program by the federal government to stimulate local production, and this brought an outright ban on wheat importation into the country. This made wheat production in Nigeria soar from 400,000 to 600,000 tons and 215,000 hectares. Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, Kano, Sokoto, Jigawa, Bauchi, Kebbi, Zamfara, and Katsina became the major producing states of wheat in Nigeria. In 2012, local consumption in the country reached 4 million tons, while the production fell drastically to 100,000 tons. The drop in the production was blamed on lack of planting materials. Not only this, changes in agricultural policies by different regimes, poor marketing channels, weak research extension farmers linkage system, inadequate water inputs management, inadequate skill in the use of biotechnological tools, lack of microcredit facilities to farmers are also hampering factors. It is believed that before the end of the year 2017, the federal government, through the wheat value chain, is to increase national wheat production to 1.5 million tons. As good as this plan is, what major efforts are being put in place to ensure this is achieved? Also, what plans does the government have to support local farmers? As well as how can the wheat producers meet up with the unending demands of consumers? These and other questions will be answered by guests on Good Morning Nigeria today.
All right, Oyemi Ajayi, thank you very much there for that background report. Now, we are being joined here in the studios in Abuja as well as at remote locations to have an elaborate conversation on this subject matter. First, we'd like to welcome the Executive Governor of Jigawa State, that's Alhaji Muhammadu Badaro Abubakar. Your Excellency, Mr. Governor, a pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you, the pleasure is mine.
All right, and then we also have with us here in the Abuja studios the Executive Director of Lake Chad Research Institute and team leader Wheat Value Chain, Dr. Olusegun Ogbenga Olabanji. Dr. Olabanji, a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning, sir. And good morning.
All right, Kingsley, from our Ibadan Network Center, we have joined us the project leader, support to agricultural research for development of strategic crops in Africa, IITA, Mr. Chris Akem. Mr. Akem, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much and good morning.
All right, and from Ibadan, we move on to our Lagos Network Center. The Group Managing Director of Flour Mills of Nigeria has joined us from there, and that's Paul Gbadebo.
Good morning.
All right, Mr. Badedo would like to thank you very much.
All right, we just indicated, I mean, we have the guests here with us as well as Ibadan and Lagos. Just before we bring in the governor of Jigawa State, because your state is one of the wheat producing states in the country, and you are also a member of the Presidential Task Force on Rice and Wheat. And yesterday, of course, you had a meeting with the acting president. There appears to be good news coming out for that. Before we get into the good news, to properly contextualize the issue of wheat, because for those of our viewers who are old enough would know that the question of wheat has been around. During the military regime some 30 years or more ago, there was so-called backward integration. You know, let's get back to producing wheat. After a while, it all collapsed, and from time to time, you know, we keep hearing of the escalating import bill that Nigeria, you know, incurs on account of importing wheat. Let's begin with Dr. Olabanji. Dr. Olabanji, why is it that Nigeria, as it were, with a large population, has been unable to, as it were again, ramp up its wheat production and depend less on imports?
Thank you so much, moderator. Nigeria has what it takes to be self-sufficient in wheat production. But there are challenges. And these challenges are, one, policies of assorting. Just as you rightly mentioned, there was accelerated wheat program in this country in 1987, which resulted in the banning of importation of wheat to this country. And as at that time, our national production was 50,000 metric tons. That was before the ban on the importation of wheat. And when it was banned, and there was incentives for wheat farmers, within 3 years, our production rose from that 50,000 metric tons to 400,000 metric tons. And the area cultivated then was 215,000 hectares, and at 2 tons per hectare. That is one. Two, we have problem of production inputs, such as good quality seed, fertilizer, small-scale irrigation pumps, poor extension service delivery, and poor market. And you know, if there is no market for any crop, farmer will not grow it. As a result of the ban on the importation of this country, of wheat in this country, our farmers that were into wheat production before went back to vegetable production, where there was market. It took the intervention of the present, the previous government and this present government to revive wheat in this country. And I'm very grateful to the governors and Mr. President. Today, I can say with all confidence that we have reduced the importation of wheat into this country by 30%.
Okay, let me still stay with you, Dr. Olabanji. I just like to know, you know, what our potentials are.
Yeah.
You understand right now, and what is, you know, our national production output really, because there are quite a number of figures, you know, that we've seen all over the social media.
Thank you. As a result of the establishment of the wheat value chain, where I became the team leader, and the intervention of SADC wheat project in Africa, which is funded by Africa Development Bank. That project came into being in the year 2012. Before then, our yield was about 2 tons per hectare. But today, we have varieties that could give us 5 to 6 tons per hectare as a result of this intervention of the SADC through germplasm exchange from ICADA. That is one. Two, Nigeria is blessed with abundant land resources. We have the land. In fact, I estimated our land potential 2 years ago when ICADA came. And the scientists came with the GPS and confirmed to me that Nigeria has 1.2 million hectares suitable for wheat production, under irrigation only. And you can imagine, if we have variety that can give us an average yield of 4 tons per hectare, what are we talking about? What is our national requirement? We require 4.7 million metric tons of wheat annually. And currently, our production is just about 400,000 metric tons, which is unacceptable. With the large pool of water resources, human resources, the favorable climate conditions we have in this country, honestly, I feel so sad, particularly when I go for International Wheat Conference and they showcase the level of self-sufficiency of different countries, and Nigeria, as at 2012, was 2% self-sufficient.
All right, Dr. Olabanji, thank you very much for your response. Again, we will pause the governor of Jigawa State. Let's explore still briefly, the outlines of the matters preliminary to what the government and other stakeholders are currently doing in the environment. I'm going over now to Chris Akem at our Ibadan Network Studios, who was earlier introduced as the project leader in charge of support to agricultural research for development of strategic crops in Africa. Mr. Chris Akem, you listen to Dr. Olabanji, and from what we know, it's often said that wheat is one of the world's 2 most political commodities, the other being crude oil. Why has it been that Nigeria has been a laggard, as it were, in attaining full sufficiency in wheat production? Are we victims of international politics of wheat?
I wouldn't say we are victims of anything. The environment is what explains it all. As we all know, wheat is a temperate crop, and the varieties that can grow under tropical conditions have been rather limited. So it's through the SAT-AC project that we screen a large number of germplasm, and we're able to get a breakthrough by identifying varieties that are heat tolerant. It is only by getting those varieties that we're able to inject into the tropical conditions in which Nigeria finds itself.
Oh, sure. We have the loss of sound from my Ibadan Network studios there. Chris Akem was also explaining. All right, now we understand there's reconnection to Ibadan via audio now. So let's listen in again. Mr. Chris Akem, if you could just back up and then explain to us why we are not necessarily victims of international wheat politics. Okay, well, we've lost that audio, but we'll get back to him now. Let's come to the nitty-gritty. That's the governor of Jigawa State. I mean, you're moving towards your midterm in office as governor of the state, and yours is one of those producing wheat. What did you find in terms of wheat cultivation, the state of farmers, the state of wheat production generally in your state, and then from your interaction with other governors?
Well, when we come in, it is exactly the story mentioned by Dr. here, that there are issues of seeds, quality seeds, support to farmers, a little bit of mechanization is missing, and the will to drive the process, as well as market. There are times before when initiatives were done and wheat were grown and there was no market, and farmers run away from growing wheat. So when we come in with the support of the federal government, we started looking inward to see how best we can produce wheat and how best we can support our farmers. And that has been done wonderfully well. If you probably remember, last year we said we will grow minimum of 300,000 hectares of wheat, and that I'm proud to say is being achieved this season, and at 2 to 2.5, maybe 3 tons per hectare. We expect a harvest this season of about between 750,000 tons to 900,000 tons. Jigar alone produced, expecting a harvest of about 100 to 120,000 tons of wheat this year. It's a remarkable achievement, even though we run into quality seed problem. Last year there was not enough quality seed, and that hampered the production. And as a result of the meeting yesterday, we agreed to produce 1.5 million tons of wheat next year. That will equate to about 1/3 of our requirement. And that is being done with the support of the anchor borrower. That's the loan facility run in collaboration with the central bank. The support on seed procurement this year that was agreed yesterday by the acting president, and also the dedication of the governors today on wheat production, and the fact that we have to start on import substitution so aggressively in this country for us to be able to stabilize our currency, for us to be able to be self-sufficient in things that we think we have the competitive advantage to grow. And wheat is one of them, and we believe that with the dedication of the government, this is achievable.
Mr. Governor, you mentioned that one of the things you found was that the farmers had abandoned, and Dr. Labanji also spoke about that, had abandoned wheat cultivation because there was no market. Was it that Nigerians were no longer eating bread, biscuit, and other pastries?
No, as of that time, you know, if you start a project initially, like you have said, our yield was at that time about 2 tons per hectare. The cost of production was high. When you compare with the imported wheat, ours is a little bit more expensive, and that makes buying the wheat difficult. And also the flour millers believe the quality might not be too excellent for the bread they produce. But thanks to the research and what they have done at Lake Chad Institute, they have improved on the quality of the wheat, and they have improved on the productivity of the wheat. As I said now, even with the second generation seed, that is a plantable material, not necessarily certified seed, we are able to achieve between 2.5 to 3 up to 4 tons per hectare today. And that makes our farmers competitive, and that brings our prices almost equal to the international prices, despite the subsidy they enjoyed in developed countries where we import wheat.
Right, Your Excellency, thank you. Let's quickly introduce the National President, Wheat Farmers Association of Nigeria, Alhaji Saleh Mohammed. He's joining us via Skype from Kano. Alhaji Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. And if we have such a huge potential for wheat cultivation in this country, you know, we're wondering from your experience, what could be the challenge to this potential?
Hello, good morning. Please come again because the voice is too low.
I'm saying if we have such a huge potential to, you know, cultivation of wheat, and even, you know, to the extent that we become self-sufficient in it, I'm wondering what are the challenges, you know, and why are we not realizing that as a farmer?
To be frank and sincere, you know, there are a lot of challenges facing wheat production in this country. And major of these challenges lies actually in the insufficient foundation seed to be grown by our farmers. Our expectation this year is we wanted to cultivate about 300,000 hectares of land across the 10 wheat producing states. But unfortunately, due to insufficient foundation seed from the Lake Chad Research Institute, we were not able, you know, to grow. So the issue of seed is one of the major fundamental challenges. that the association is facing. And there is also the issue of, other agricultural inputs like fertilizer. The prices are always fluctuating, getting a little bit higher for our farmers, to procure and use in their production activities. Also, we have the issue of mechanization. Mechanization is also another issue. In this millennium age, you'll be surprised that our farmers are still, beating seeds with sticks and drums, to thrash. And the issue of also tractorization is a very, very low supply to the farmers. Actually, our farmers need to migrate from the subsistence farming to a little bit semi-mechanized farming, in as much as we want to, meet the production target we are having. And the issue of water pump is also another issue that the farmers are facing, because wheat is an irrigational crop. In Padama areas, farmers used to have to, build construct a borehole. Then they have to be using water pumps to draw water. And sometimes even in the areas where they have these irrigational facilities, there are some places where the farmers must use water pump and siphon to draw water to their irrigation farms. And also the issue of, harvest, which is the most important, the key about wheat farming. When the farmers grow, most of these flour millers in those days, or even up to present period of time, they were saying that the wheat quality is very, very poor as compared to the imported wheat. But luckily enough, last year, we were able to get 2 cleaning machines, one support from the SAD-SC project by Lecture Research Institute, and the second one was procured by the chapter of the Wheat Farmers Association here in Kano. And we have now started giving the quality parameter expected by the Wheat Flour Associations. So actually, the issue of challenges are numerous, very, very numerous. The issue of even the capital, a farmer needs to go into the production. Because if you look at the experience we had this year, wheat seed is sold between 35,000 to 45,000 naira per 100 kg bag, which is very, very exorbitant. And the fertilizer is ranging between 7,000 to 8,500 per bag. So we need actually the intervention of government from both sides. Our expectation was that this year we are going to have many more states that can be captured under the CBN ABP program. But unfortunately, there were only few states that were carried along. One, because they said we are late in the preparations of the documentations. Two, they are saying that there are some states that have taken loan on rice, wet season rice production, and they have not recovered, so that farmers cannot enjoy another set. But what we are challenging here is wheat and rice are two different crops grown on two different, temperature conditions. So I don't see the reason why, when a rice farmer has benefited from a certain program, a wheat farmer should be deprived from benefiting from such a program. So that's why as the expectation of this year was a little bit, here they have hiccups here and there. So these are part of the challenges we are facing. But the most fundamental, as I said earlier, is the issue of the seed.
Alhaji Saleh Mohammed, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. You've touched on some very key points there. Let's go over now to our Lagos Network Studios, where we earlier introduced the Group Managing Director of Flour Mills of Nigeria. That's Mr. Paul Badedo. Of course, flour mills is one of the major consumers of the commodity that we're talking about. Perhaps we can back up a bit, Mr. Badedo, to have an understanding of why the earlier accelerated wheat program, production program, collapsed. Are there lessons we need to learn from that era so that as we are getting excited now about the new sprouts, we do not fall back into the accustomed ways of failure?
Thank you, Kensley. I can only look at two major areas that we need to learn from. The first one is data collection. And of course, the second one is how we can ensure that our policies are sustainable. What I mean by data collection, we need to improve data collection and be sure that the figures we give and present to the public is the true figure. That is very important. And I think that might have been responsible for the failure that we had in the 80s. The second point, of course, is that when we have a policy, particularly inclusive policy, policy that is enforceable, policy that is supported by government, we need to ensure that such policies are sustainable. Not that we have a policy now, and of course, within some couple of years, we have to change those policies. Of course, we can always fine-tune policies, but not entirely to abandon such policies. Policies that are good for the country, policies that will ensure that we have self-sufficiency, especially in food production. Let me come back again to the issue of data collection and how it works in our country. I want to use the example of cassava and how that impacts on having farmers producing cassava and also having industries, processing cassava. We all know that Nigeria produces over 35 million metric tons of cassava annually. That is the figure that we have. And I believe that we are close to that figure. But if you set up a processing plant to process cassava, you may not find even 10,000 metric tons of cassava, to process. What is happening then is that whatever we produce as cassava is eaten traditionally by Nigerians. Therefore, if you want to have a processing plant, it will take a number of years to develop outgrowers that will be able to help you with your supply chain in the processing plant. The same thing applies to wheat and any other crop for that matter. Of course, we are producing wheat in the country, and traditionally we have always produced wheat. But whatever we produce is eaten locally, by Nigerians. And therefore, you don't have much left for the industry, to process. So we need capacity building then in order to ensure that we have wheat for the processing industries. Capacity building in one, as has been mentioned, we need seed propagation, proper seed propagation. And you know it, no agricultural venture or business can thrive without proper seed. And if your yield is not good, farmer will not make money. For instance, up till now, the average yield that we are recording for wheat is at best 1.5 or 2 metric tons per hectare, at best. Whereas what has been developed by the Lake Chad Institute is claiming to be about 4 tons or even 5 tons, the Attila variety or the Norman variety. However, we are not seeing that translating into real wheat production. And that is what we need to keep on working on. We need to keep on building capacity in seed propagation and ensure that, yes, whatever we say we are going to produce, the farmer will actually produce it. If it is 1 hectare or 10 hectares that the farmer is cultivating on wheat, then he is sure that he's going to get for 1 hectare at least 3 to 4 metric tons. That will help the farmer, because if you get 4 metric tons per hectare, it will bring down the cost of production per ton, and therefore you can sell your produce to the industry, and the industry will be able to absorb it. So it's very important that we build capacity in this area. The second area, of course, is building capacity in irrigation. All right, it is true that wheat is an opportunistic and irrigated crop. So we need to ensure that the right time that we plant, wheat, we have the irrigation facilities available to the farmers. That will help, to ensure that we cultivate wheat at the right time, and then we expect the right yield from the farmers. Recently, we have been assisting, we are on board, with the farmers in all the states. Alhaji Saleh Mohammed will recall that, we have always been talking together with farmer and farmer associations to ensure that the industry, the wheat milling industry, supports, farmers. We provide them with irrigation equipments, which was launched, late last year, just before the planting season, and we continue, to support them in other areas. For instance, even with seeds, we had to, supply, seeds to the farmers to ensure that we can have good yield, and we're expecting good yield probably this harvest season. So building capacity in that area is very vital, to ensuring that, we improve the yield and the cultivation of wheat. We also need funding. That was mentioned by Alhaji, Mohammed. We need funding for the farmers. Just like we are supporting the rice farmers, we need to continue to support, wheat farmers as well. The anchor borrowing program is a very noble program, and wheat farmers should key, into that as well, so as to ensure that, we quickly multiply the production, of wheat, and therefore building capacity and having less dependence on importation, of wheat. Of course, we talked about quality. That is very important to the industries. We need to ensure that we have the right quality. But even then, at this point in time, we need to be encouraging the farmers. Whatever the farmer is producing, and we can get it cleaned up, we will, we will absorb it into the industries and ensure that, we blend it, with imported wheat until we build enough capacity, and have self-sufficiency, in this country. Even if we do not have the right wheat, we believe that we must continue to improve and research and ensure that, we have the right, quality of seed that will give us the right quality of wheat that we need for the industries. This must be clear to everyone. We are fully on board. We are fully ready, to, offtake any wheat that is produced in the country, ready for the industries. Last year, we signed MOU with farmers. We signed MOU that whatever is produced, we will offtake. We even agreed on the base price, with the farmers. Unfortunately, because of the high cost of production, farmers are not able, to sell directly to the industries. And this must be very clear also. If we ensure that we increase capacity of farmers, then it is very sure that price of wheat will come down, and therefore the industries can continue, to offtake from the farmers.
Mr. Badedo, thank you. You've spoken so much. But again, let me take some of the issues you've raised to Alhaji Saleh Mohammed, of course, who is joining us via Skype in Kano. Alhaji Mohammed, you listen to Mr. Badedo, especially on the interface between the millers and farmers. And we understand that locally produced wheat, it's less attractive to millers. So what is exactly your relationship, interactions with millers?
Actually, as rightly spoken by the executive of the Flour Millers Association, the national president, last year we had a very good working relationship with them, because we have reached an agreement that they are willing to uptake whatever quantity of wheat produced in this country by their associations. And we have reached an MOU agreement. Although he has spoken about the high cost of production, definitely that is a point to be considered. As I said earlier, our farmers are still using local mechanization, local tools to produce, definitely the cost of production has to be higher. But in as much as we can be able, or there should be a support that can build the capacity of the farmers, especially in the mechanization system in this country, it would drastically reduce the cost of the production, and the flour millers can obtain Nigerian wheat at a very reasonable price. But if we continue, to be producing locally in this country and continue to be purchasing inputs at the discretion of the market, fluctuation prices, definitely the cost of production will be higher as expected. And another reason whereby, you can see the variations, the differences between the imported wheat in the country and the locally produced wheat here in Nigeria is there are nations there, especially if we can take a case study of the United States of America. They are giving about subsidies to their farmers, which brought down the cost of the production. Their cost of production, if you look at the analysis, is even higher than the cost of production of wheat here in Nigeria. But because they are getting support from their government, that's why they have that subsidy help them in bringing in their inputs here to this country at a lesser price than what we produce here locally. So we have to consider that, because I have browsed and see the statistic data of the production, costs in the valley, around the valleys of Mexico and some other areas. Their cost of production is higher than what we produce here locally. But because of that subsidy support they get from their governments, that's why it comes cheaper into this our country. So if you look at this, then it means they are dumping on us, not to allow us to produce the wheat to satisfy our national demand, or even to have more for export production in this country. But in as much as we can get this capacity building, especially on mechanization system, our farmers have the knowledge to go into mechanization. The tools are made available to the farmers at an affordable rate, or an agreement, key-in agreements between the farmers and what the suppliers of. I'm sure our farmers can produce as much wheat possible for the consumption of our local flour millers in the country, and even for export. And also the issue of production actually has spoken well, that initially wheat was produced locally, given a minimum of 1.5 to 2 metric tons per hectare. But with the introduction of the new variety by the Lecture Research Institute, the production output now has risen up to 4 to 5 hectares in certain areas. Last year, we had a similar experiences in 3 states in the country. In Jigawa, we have a farmer who cultivated up to about 6 tons per hectare. And we had one in Kano, about 5.8 tons, and we had one in Kebbi, about 4.5 tons also. So you see, the farmers are now getting educated, and the good varieties is the most stable and important, aspect of wheat production in this country. So in as much as we can get the best variety to be grown that can give us a higher, yield in the country, actually we can be able to produce, to the satisfaction of our not even local consumption or even external consumption. I'm optimistic about this. You see, if you look at the cases of other countries like India now are producing between 8 to 10 tons of wheat per hectare. Why can't we reach there? We can be reached there, but at least, there has to be a very good synergy between, all the stakeholders involved in wheat production, so that we can move the production to satisfy our demand, even cut the cost of importation rates our country is spending in bringing wheat into this country.
All right, Alhaji Saleh, thank you very much there for your response to our last question. We'll again come back to you in the course of the conversation. And back to our Abuja studios. The Governor of Jigawa State, of course, is still here with us. Mr. Governor, you've listened to the various points articulated by the other guests. Unfortunately, we've not heard Mr. Chris Akem again from Ibadan because we lost the audio connection to him. Let's get to understand from you what are the specifics of the intervention by the Presidential Task Force on Rice and Wheat, and at the state government level, what are the states doing? Because some of the challenges that they have identified, these are problems within the province of state governments to solve.
Well, let's start with the challenges. Let's take the seed first. Yesterday, we really discussed extensively on the issue of seed, and we find out it was a challenge for this season that we are just harvesting, but we have to mop out plantable materials this very particular season for the next season, because our target is to produce about 1.5 million tons of wheat, which means we need about 600,000 hectares, which means we need about 600,000 100 kilo bags of seed to produce. And the acting president has ordered the Ministry of Finance to arrange on how to uptake this seed for the next year's season. So the seed issue is completely under control in the short term, and on the medium term, yesterday also was the director on Seed Council, and he was asked to collaborate with the Lake Chad Research Institute to see how best we can develop more and produce more of the foundation seed for the 2019 harvest. And that will help in improving clearly well the yield per hectare. So the seed issue has been discussed yesterday and has been tackled. Timelines were set and funds were made available. Then on the fertilizer, I'm sure you are aware of the presidential initiative on 1 million tons of fertilizer for this year's season. And that has kicked up. Fertilizer is being produced today in Nigeria, or being blended today in Nigeria, and is being distributed around the states, and we are expecting to produce 1 million tons of fertilizer for a farm gate price of not more than 5,500 per ton. This is happening, and currently this fertilizer is already being sent to different states. For instance, in Jigawa, we already received about 2,000, while we mark a demand of about 50,000, and that will be met. And this initiative is really a very good one. There is no subsidy involved. The federal initiative discussed with the Moroccan government on how to buy phosphate at a very good price. Discussed with Indorama to support us here in Nigeria was urea for the blending, and of course, you know, we have the limestone in abundance in this country, and we import potash. So this initiative helped the country to produce this fertilizer for about 5,000 ex-works and to be sold to farmers at 5,005. It's happening. It's going to be a very big game changer, because now the farmers will have a reduced price of about 5,005 as against the 8,500 that we anticipate will buy fertilizers this year. So the issue of fertilizer also is being handled. Then we discussed the issue of the Anchor Borrower Program. And it was clearly discussed yesterday, and we see the need to extend the payment to 1 year instead of a season, because we envisage most of the rice farmers are also the wheat farmers. Most of those that do dry season rice, they plant wheat in November, harvest around middle of February, then plant rice again and harvest before the rainy season, and after the rainy season plant rice again. So in most of these fields, the farmers do 3 cropping sessions in a year. So we believe if we finance them once, we allow them to pay in a full year so that they will enjoy the finance for the cycle. That has been discussed and is going to be, the system will be changed as against paying at harvest, but paying after a year. And that will support the farmers greatly, and there is enough finance there. And most of the states, like Jigawa State also, is seriously investing in agriculture and financing agriculture, because we believe with the intervention that is in out there, farmers are making money, and I'm sure my own farmers are making money today. The second challenge is that of mechanization. For instance, in Jigawa, we calculated that we'll be harvesting about 40,000 hectares of wheat this year. So we bought in about 1,000 handheld mechanized harvesters, and that will do about 1 hectare in 1 or 2 hours of work, depending on who is operating. And that we use to harvest the wheat as quickly and as fast as possible, and at a very low cost to the farmers. So we use this as a youth empowerment project. We give these harvesters to use, train them, and they act as service providers to the farmers. That much we have done, and we bought a lot of threshers also, enough to be able to process the 100,000 tons of wheat we are expecting. And those threshers were distributed to different fields, for, also using the same strategy, give to use, and they act as service providers to the farmers, and they process their wheat and clean the wheat in the farm. So the mechanization issue we are handling little by little in most of the state, and I believe towards next season we will see more of the state adopting the same strategy that we are doing in Jigawa State now. Then the case of market sales, as they have said, the Flour Mills Association are in constant contact with our committee and with the federal government on an uptake agreement. Right now we are discussing on this season's harvest, and they are agreeing to uptake. We are negotiating for a price between 18 to 20,000 naira per bag, and the discussion is ongoing, and we expect to conclude either today or tomorrow, so that whatever is left, the flour millers will take. Like he have rightly said, most of the production goes to the individual consumers for different food requirements, but there will be also enough around for the flour mills to uptake and stabilize the price and make farmers happy. So we anticipate at between 18 per bag to 20 per bag, the farmers will make good profit and will be encouraged to plant wheat next season. And of course, the dumping issue. If we are forced as government, there is the tariff issue. We review the tariff to balance the cost of production versus the imported wheat in this country. So the government is not relenting, and we are focused, and I believe the target of 1.5 million tons of wheat for next season is achievable and is a realistic target, and from then we'll move on. So I am sure in the next 2-3 years we'll be able to catch up with the target of 4.5 million tons of wheat in this country.
Your Excellency, Executive Governor of Jigawa State, thank you. Let's now go back to Ibadan Network Center. Mr. Chris Akem, I hope we can hear each other now. If so, thank you for your patience. Now, I'm sure so much has been said about the quality of seeds, and of course how it's impeding, production and yield. Now, how accessible are improved seedlings to farmers? And also, wheat has been described as an irrigation crop. Now, if we are to attain the commercial status that we are aspiring, can it drive us there?
Yes, the bottleneck for wheat expansion continues to be seed. I'm happy that the other speakers have commented on it. We can borrow from other countries and go into community seed production. This is exactly the scheme that is being used in the Gezira in Sudan, where basically the government commissioned a number of producers to produce seed, and then the seed is bought back and given to growers to grow. We'll have to find some mechanism how we can fast track and increase the seed production so that we can overcome that bottleneck. Yes, we have 2 varieties that can yield 5 to 7 tons per hectare right now. With those varieties, we can acquire the transformation that we are looking for. Initially, the 2 tons could not make it. There was no way we could have brought wheat to be profitable with 2 tons per hectare. The challenge now is how we can fast track the multiplication of the seed of those 2 varieties so that they can reach the growers. The other issue that we've talked about has been mechanization. Through the project, we've imported a number of threshers, a number of combines, all machinery that can accelerate that transformation of wheat production in Nigeria. I think we're in a position to train local artisans so that we can mass produce these machines at local level and at local prices so that they are made available to all the different wheat production areas within the country. That will also help to accelerate how far we go with our wheat transformation within the country. In terms of irrigation, yes, it is a challenge that wheat within the country is only grown in irrigated conditions. We need to train more people, and it goes back to the point that the other speakers have talked about, capacity building. How can we bring in more engineers to fabricate some of these irrigation facilities so that we can extend them, not only to the 4 states that we are talking about now, but even to the other 6 potential states. We know that wheat can grow very profitably on about 10 states within the northern region. If we have to reach that transformation, we need to go beyond the 4 states that we are focusing on now. And to do that, we need to have the mechanization equipment, and we need to have the irrigation facilities extended to those states. Those are challenges that we need to meet. The market, I'm very happy that the Flour Mill Association signed a contract with the farmers so that the market is guaranteed. One of the challenges we have again is we have to be very careful so that we have to differentiate between grain and seed producers. In the last field day that we had in Kano, in which the honorable governors from Kano and KV came, we were faced with the challenge. We've signed. They need the seed. We need seed. We need grain for the millers. We have to be very careful that we don't confuse grain with seed, because we need both. So we need to commission people who produce grain and those who produce seed, so that our seed needs are met, and then the grain needs are also met for the flour mills that we have in place. I believe that again, it's not a political matter, it's a reality. We have 2 varieties that can meet the needs of Nigeria, but we need to go beyond our current level of doing business and go to a level where we actually challenge ourselves. Maybe there's opportunities for, through the African Development Bank, of what they call taking loans, basically to transform the different private sector of agricultural transformation. The project that introduced all these facilities, the seed, the new varieties, it cannot do it alone. The government has to think beyond that. If we really want to cut back on the imports, which is $4.5 billion US a year right now, then we need to go to a bigger scheme, I believe, in order to transform wheat production in the country. And I would really encourage that we start thinking how we can approach the bank. The bank is readily available to extend loans to any country that want to actually take the agricultural transformation agenda to a different level. And I believe wheat is the right crop to do that in Nigeria, if we are really setting the target that we want to meet.
All right, Mr. Chris Akem, thank you very much for your contribution. Just to indicate that we have a number of tweets that have come in, and the tweets, of course, deal with a range of issues. But before we take the tweets, I would like Dr. Olabanji very quickly to speak to the distinction that Mr. Akem was making between grains growers and seed growers. Are we getting it right now in this new program projection?
Thank you, sir. There is a difference between seed and grain. Even in the seed, there are 3 classes of seed. We have breeder seed, which is about 95 to 100% pure. Then we have foundation seed, which is about 75 to 90% pure. Then we have certified seed, which is about 50 to 65% pure. Then grain is mixed. It's a mixed varieties. Now, we have a structure on the ground for the production of seed and grains. Lecture Research Institute and some of our sister research institutes like IR, we produce breeder and foundation seeds. And we give these seeds to seed companies. Unfortunately, for wheat, there was no seed company before the advent of SADC and wheat value chain. There was no seed company that produces wheat in this country, produces wheat seed in this country. But today, we have more than 8 seed companies that are into seed production of wheat. And we are still sensitizing other seed companies to key into wheat seed production. Not only that, through Decided Seed, we were able to train farmers, some farmers, enterprising farmers, on community-based seed production. We have our growers that are doing that. Then we have farmers that are actually growing grains. And we used to have we collaborate with National Agri-Seed Council. And what the law says is this: any seed or so-called seed that is not certified by National Agri-Seed Council is not a seed. And we have encouraged our farmers. They are in cooperatives, as the chairman has said. They are in cooperatives. So for those of them that produce seed, we attach them with seed certification officer from National Agri-Seed Council. And we are sure of seed. But those that are not certified are grains, and that's the difference.
All right, Dr. Olabanji, thank you very much. Now to the reactions from our viewers. Ali Ahmed has this tweet. He said, what are the plans of Jigawa state government to help farmers at the bank of the river that runs from Ringim to Hadeja on the irrigation system? Once again, that's a direct question to the Jigawa state government. So what are the plans of the Jigawa state government to help farmers who are at the bank of the river that runs from Ringim to Hadeja on the irrigation system? Another direct question, Kingsley, to His Excellency here, and it's a tweet coming from Don M.O., and he tweets, Excellency, sir, what efforts has your government made to establish a working processing industry to assist the farmers in your state? And it's from Alhaji Ishaq Abdul Hamid. There has been and there is still too much politics in local wheat production and consumption. The farmer needs also the consumer. All right, and Muhammad Jamil Sadura tweets, wheat production should be mechanized, soft loans for farmers and affordable land tenure will spice wheat farming in this country. And then we have this from Mr. Daura. It says, really, if government is committed to wheat production, it must redouble its efforts and produce enough resources to help farmers. And Mohammed Usman tweets, for we in the flour milling industry, apart from seed yield per hectare, we are also concerned about the quality of the wheat. Suleiman Sanusi tweets, in Borno State, we have vast land for wheat cultivation in commercial quantity, and the soil itself is quite friendly. All right, change to progress. Nigeria government seems to be getting it right with focus on self-sufficiency in rice, wheat, tomatoes, 2018 target. God bless you all. Festus Akimboyewa tweets, like rice, government should subsidize seed, fertilizers, and agrochemical sprays to enhance the output of farmers to successfully grow wheat. And Danjuma Adejo tweets, we see the evidence of good work done by Lake Chad Research Institute in pushing the wheat agenda. Let's improve on this, please. And then we have this from Sani Bankalamakoji. Our production output is below our consumption rate, simply because we don't give attention to value chain in this country. All right, Solomon Olakunle tweets, the money that was given to farmers last year by the president was not properly utilized. Many of them here used the money to get married. And then Mohammed Usman said, bring back the Lake Chad Basin Development Authority's irrigation and sundry projects, as well as recharging Lake Chad, which would help. And Festus Akimboyewa tweets, like rice, government should subsidize seed, fertilizers, and agrochemical sprays to enhance the ability of our farmers to successfully grow wheat. All right, Danjuma Adejo tweets, say we see the evidence of good work done by the Lake Chad Research Institute in pushing the wheat agenda. Let's improve on this, please. And Law Alpha C tweets, we should be grateful to the northern states for feeding Nigerians with wheat. What they need is support from governments. All right, those are some of the tweets that we're taking in the meantime. Let's return. Mr. Governor, what's your reaction? Let's say, what are you doing with regard to processing as well as irrigation for those farmers who cultivate along the banks from Ringim to Hadeja?
Well, on the Hadeja Valley, we call it Hadeja Valley. In fact, There are 3 initiatives going on now. There is the World Bank project, that is the trimming project they call it, that is currently working on that valley to first desilt the rivers and remove the taipa grass that embedded the rivers and disrupt water flow. And that is happening right now. And there is also another initiative done by ADB, that's the ATAPS project, and that is also to support the irrigation infrastructure around there. And on the state level, we are working with Islamic Development Bank to see how we improve the irrigation infrastructure around the valley. And that is happening also. In addition to that, we have taken census and the coordinates of all the Padama lands that we have in the state, and we assess them and size them, those that we have to drill borehole and supply water pumps to the farmers. We are currently doing now to improve the irrigation infrastructure and improve the land base for the state for irrigation. That is happening. Where we have to install between 6 inches to 12 inches pump for massive farm irrigation, we are already doing that already. The study is there, and the pumps have been ordered, and we'll start to install them. The thinking in Jigawa State is to see how we can improve, at least increase our irrigation infrastructure by 10,000 hectares a year. And that is happening, and we are achieving the target this year. And if all these projects go through, we anticipate to have close to 300,000 to 400,000 hectares ready for irrigation in the next 2-3 years.
One of the key points that Mr. Chris Akem touched on while he was speaking to us a moment ago from the Battle Network Center has to do with domesticating aspects of our mechanization in terms of the implements. What is the level of attention that the Presidential Task Force is paying to this? Can we fabricate some of the things here? Can we encourage light or heavy industries to get into this?
Yes, for sure. The threshers we are using today in Jigawa are threshers that have been built in Nigeria by Haniga in Kaduna State. And we're encouraging some of the fabricators already in Jigawa State, and they have started fabricating threshers for us and small implements. We have the use centers where we train use on all this process, and we expect whatever machineries we are using or equipments we are using, we will find a way to fabricate them locally. As I have mentioned, all these implements, the equipments that we bought, we have trained use in it, and we have trained use on how to repair them, and we are working on fabrication using our own skill acquisition centers that are there in the state, and they are well equipped to carry on with this. So that is why I said in rice and wheat value chain alone, we in Jigawa State have the potential to empower 10,000 youths a year.
All right.
Kingsley, if all that is being said today is anything to go by, then 2018 may be too far to realize our target. But this is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break.
I come to you in the name of money.
There is mega fortune in town. Easy money to be made. Everyone wants to get paid. And so the scheming, the intrigues in Make Money Miss.
If you bring that 300 beer, if you just wait for 15 days, you know how much go enter? 90 B.
Unbelievable! This week's edition of your award-winning comedy and social satire series from Mr. John Boone, featuring the biggest, the best, and the most hilarious stars in Nigerian entertainment.
Now, why are on the name of your own business, I be like a winch name. Asusu.
And showing at 8:30 p.m. every Tuesday and Friday on NTA Network International and Star Times.
Sir, the small money that I used to give to you to hold for me.
Oh, yes.
I need it.
Give me 30 minutes.
Prof, I'm less busy. I'm not doing anything. I can actually wait here for 30 minutes.
Professor John Boone is about to unleash.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert, the sea. Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Okay, sir. You may now go in for your interview.
Thank you. Ah, my shoe. And to think I just bought this very expensive foreign shoe 2 months ago. So sorry about your shoes. This is why I advise my friends to always patronize made in Nigeria products. See this shoe. It's made in Nigeria and I've had it for 2 years and it's still as good as the day I bought it.
Made in Nigeria products are good quality, and stringent government regulations and certification now mean the goods made in Nigeria meet international standards. Make the patriotic choice today. Buy right. Buy made in Nigeria.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
All right, you're welcome back. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're still discussing the subject matter. You can see the caption there right on your screen. To return to our Lagos Network studios, where we still have the Group Managing Director of Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC, that's Mr. Paul Gbanido. Mr. Paul Gbanido, very briefly, we've listened to the expectations and the rosy picture that is being sketched. It would appear that we are well on the way to attaining self-sufficiency in wheat production going forward. What will this mean for your import bill as persons, users of wheat? What would that mean? Telling us also what your current import bill is and what the knockdown effect will be. That's one. Secondly, if we are scaling up wheat production, what does that mean for cassava bread?
Thank you, Kingsley. Let me first of all say this. The entire wheat import into the country is between 4 million and 4.5 million metric tons. And the total bill for this, with an average, for instance, of $250, will give you just about 1.2 billion or 1.3 billion. That is the total import bill for wheat into the country. Now, we are on board and we want to use wheat as much as possible. And we'll continue to do that until we totally build the capacity for self-sufficiency in the country. But this needs to be said. We need to be thinking of the entire value chain whenever we are discussing any crop in Nigeria. Think of the entire value chain. We cannot build capacity of farmers and create millionaires in the upstream, that is of farmers, while downstream industries, you make them to have inputs that are beyond the reach of consumers if they are to produce goods from it. This is what I mean. If the price of wheat, locally produced wheat, is so high, flour millers are just midstream in the value chain. We only take that wheat and grind it into flour. But that flour is a raw material for so many industries. One, it is the major raw material for baking industry. Therefore, if the input price is high for wheat millers, then the price of flour to the bakers will be high, and therefore bread will be very expensive in the country. Number two, it is the raw material to the biscuit industry. All biscuit industries in Nigeria will probably run out of business if the cost of flour is too high, because they will not be able to sell their biscuit. Three, it is the raw material to the pasta industries and noodles industry. Poor man's food, that if the cost of flour is so high, it will make those products very expensive. The confectionery, puff-puff, gala, and all the snacks that you see, they are wheat-based. They are part of the wheat value chain. Therefore, we need to manage the chain very well in order that we do not have high prices upstream and therefore creating problems. Therefore, all the stakeholders will need to come together and be reasonable so that we can have a successful wheat value chain running in the country. That is very critical, and we are continuing to support the initiative of government to ensure that we are self-sufficient in wheat production, and thereby not reliant on importation of wheat. It is to the best interest of Nigeria if Nigeria can produce all the wheat that it needs, and therefore we will not depend on foreign exchange to import wheat into the country. So we need to continue to work at it. We have been supporting the wheat farmers, and we want them to continue to grow their capacity.
Well, Mr. Badedo, Group Managing Director of Flour Mills, thank you very much. We don't really have enough time, but one aspect of my question you didn't touch on is what happens to cassava bread. Will you still rely on cassava if wheat is subscaled? Very briefly.
Cassava, initiative is still ongoing, and we are still, having cassava blended into the wheat flour at the moment. However, we are also thinking beyond cassava, even sorghum, because these are local, grains. We are also, in the process of installing sorghum plants where we can convert sorghum into sorghum flour that can blend easily with wheat flour. The end product is that we are gradually reducing the volume of imports into the country and growing. The ultimate is to have our own wheat, cultivated to the volume that we need in the country. That will totally eliminate import cassava flour, even with the local, wheat that is produced. That will be a total success, for our country.
All right, excuse me, Mr. Badedo, would like to thank you for being part of our conversation this morning. You joined us from our Lagos Network studios.
It's my pleasure.
All right, and then to go over now to Mr. Chris Akem, would like to thank you, but just before we do you have any anxieties about the success of the current program and what we need to take into consideration to attain full success? Very briefly.
Yes, I've enjoyed the discussion and the contribution from the different participants. The Institute does the work on wheat that has made these new varieties possible. It's a cadre. It's a sister center to IITA where I work. International conference in Abuja. I want to take this advantage to announce it and to invite all the stakeholders so we can be able to continue with the discussion. I believe during that conference, which starts from the 28th of February through the 3rd of March in Sandrelia Hotel, we'll be able to take this discussion to another level by basically having group discussions at the marketing level, at the production level, at the different supply chain levels has been emphasized. I think this issue of seed continues to be a real bottleneck, and I really want to thank Dr. Lobanji for trying to between seed and grain, because my fear is with the short seed, people will start rushing and trying to buy grain in the name of seed, and then the is production will go down. And even the new varieties that we have, 5 to 7 tons per hectare, they will start having poor germination. I wanted to make that very clear, and I hope we keep those strict measures in place. And I really believe the future is very good to transform wheat in Nigeria. But to do that, we have to think beyond the current level of our thinking. We need to really think of how we can expand the program. We have another program that is coming up called Transformation of Agriculture, Transformation in Africa, TAD, Technology for Africa.
All right, Chris Akem, thank you very much there. As I said, we don't have enough time. Thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. We also would like to go over to Kano to sign off Alhaji Saleh Mohammed. Of course, he's the National President of the Wheat Farmers Association of Nigeria. Alhaji Saleh, let's get your closing thoughts very briefly.
Thank you very much. Actually, as we have been saying earlier, the greater challenges of wheat production in this country is the sea. So here our expectations will be if the federal government should fund for the sea production by the Child Research Institute so that our farmers can be self-sufficient in getting foundation seed for production by next season, it will be of great help. And also, it's very interesting that I heard from the National President of the Flour Milling Association that we are coming to terms also on the guaranteed minimum price this season. I hope it's going to be very, very urgent because we have already started in some areas, harvesting have already started. And in as much also, we are appealing to the seed companies to join hands with the associations in getting the produce and then, processing the foundation seed into the certified seed. Because I'm sorry to say, this year we are not even having enough quantity of the foundation seed to plant. We only plant what is called plantable material. I think we have to move from this stage to a certified seed by next production season. Also, the federal government of Nigeria, that is the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, has to, try to support in mopping up all the wheat produced this season so that we cannot be short of getting the seed required for, production by next season.
All right, Alhaji Saleh Mohammed, I'm afraid that's the much we can take from that response. Of course, Alhaji Mohammed is the National President of Wheat Farmers Association of Nigeria. He joined us via Skype from Kano. We'd like to thank you, Alhaji. And we'd also like to appreciate the contributions of the Executive Leader with Value Chain, Dr. Oluwashino Benga Olabanje. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And His Excellency, Executive Governor of Jigawa State, Alhaji Muhammadu Badru Abubakar. Your Excellency, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We have just enough time to check the weather.
Welcome to the weather forecast from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. I am Onyilo Desmond. We have recorded some very cold nighttime temperatures within the past 1 week. 11 degrees Celsius over Kano, 10 degrees Celsius over Jos. The country was equally dry as dust haze held sway, engulfing even the coastal cities of Lagos and Port Harcourt. We do not expect any significant threat from dust haze on Tuesday, and so slight dust haze should be the prevalent weather over most parts of the north and the central cities. Early morning fog is likely over the coastal cities of Lagos, Ondo, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, and Port Harcourt. Dust haze should still be the prevalent weather over the south, but comparatively poorer visibilities over Ibadan, Ishayin, Lokoja, Akure, and Benin.